Welcome to the Dr. Diane Show, where we explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. With over 20 years of expertise as a mindset warrior, perspective shifter, and unshakable optimist, I am dedicated to helping you reach your wildest dreams in business, health, performance, and relationships. Learn about the power of thought and how it shapes your life to take risks, change careers, find love, go on adventures, and live passionately with me, Dr. Diane. Get ready for revolutionary ways of thinking, being, and creating an amazing life. The Dr. Diane Show starts now. Hello and welcome to the Dr. Diane Show. I am Dr. Diane Hayden, and you are listening to the Dr. Diane Show on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour, where we will explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul. Each time on the Dr. Diane Show, we have experts from around the country discussing cutting-edge topics on longevity medicine, natural health, mindset, and soul purpose to help you shift your perspective and become a mindset warrior like me. I'm excited today to have my guest as Anne Costerella, MALADC. She is an integrative psychotherapist, spiritual scientist, and the owner of Your Birthday is My Business. A licensed psychotherapist and metaphysician, Anne decodes the secret language of birthdays, interpreting the astrology, numerology, cardology, and personology connected with each client's date of birth. She weaves the ancient wisdoms of Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, Carl Jung, and Jesus Christ with contemporary psychologies to energetically understand the language of the soul and help guide clients to understand themselves from the inside out. Anne believes it is imperative to understand the soul's curriculum created before incarnation. Soul is camouflaged in the name and birth date of every human being. Nomen est omen, which is Latin, for the name and the date of birth is the destiny. So welcome, Anne. How are you today?
Thank you, Diane. I'm well and excited to be here. It's finally happening.
I know. Well, this is going to be awesome because this is, as you know, one of my favorite topics, and we're going to fascinate listeners today for sure, for sure. So before we get into all the stuff that we just talked about, I like to give people a little bit of a background. Like, people are always curious, how did you even discover some of these ancient wisdoms and kind of, the path that your life took you down this journey? So just tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so I was exploring graduate schools when I was in my mid-40s, and was looking at one particular school, Antioch College up in New Hampshire, and saw that they had a curriculum because I was interested in pursuing a graduate degree in counseling psychology, and I noticed that Antioch was offering coursework in astrology and numerology. This was all under the heading of counseling psychology. And I thought, how does astrology and numerology have anything to do with psychology and with my pursuing a graduate degree? So at that time, I was living in Boston. I decided to pursue a reading for myself in astrology, and found out that the reader was just telling me things about myself that you could not have possibly known had there not been some validity to this quote unquote science. So I then started studying on my own, kept 2 business cards because I was never comfortable with me having letters after my name, and then also having this kind of spiritual, mystical side, because back in the 90s, at the time when I was studying, it was like certainly not acceptable at all. So I was somewhat, secretive about it back then. But then as time went on and I developed more confidence in the belief system that, we're leaving out the soul, because psychology, the word psychology is defined as the study of the psyche. And if you look up psyche in the dictionary, it's a Greek word that means soul. So once I read that and continued to explore stars and signs and numbers and numerology and the 52 playing cards, and I put all of these ancient wisdoms together and recognized that all the gentlemen that you just mentioned, Jesus Christ, Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, were all studying these systems to understand human beings, to understand themselves, to understand behavior. And I thought, wow, this is really interesting. I mean, this is all so, and it was so much of what I read was so incredibly accurate. So that's how it all started. And then I just kept baby stepping my way into it while I was pursuing career in a hospital-based system that had absolutely no interest at all in exploring the soul. So
Yeah.
it was kind of
Yeah, and we've known each other for a long, long time. I mean,
mhm,
longer than I think I've had my magazines, which is going
mm,
on 18 years now. So, and you are just an amazing wealth of information in all of these. I mean, I don't think I can honestly say, like, out of all of the different practitioners I've worked with, I don't know that I've ever come across somebody who can take all four of these components
but
with the amount of knowledge that you know and put them together. And what's interesting, as we're going to talk about, is why it's so important to really take pieces from each one. Like, I've
mhm,
looked at from an astrological perspective that I'm an Aquarius, but there's a lot of things that I read sometimes about Aquarians that doesn't fit me at all. And so now it's like looking at these other things like numerology or the cards to
but
see, like, yeah, it's not just okay, you can be an Aquarius, but there's a lot of other things that come into play, why, what your soul purpose is and
but
how you have evolved and people that you meet and all that kind of thing. But before we get to that,
yes.
explain to me what metaphysical therapy is, because I think probably most people listening have heard of the metaphysical and we know what psychotherapy is, but how do you combine those two?
So, I mean, meta meaning beyond, physical meaning the physical plane. So when we come into a body, I call it in this culture, when we're downloaded into a body on the day of our birth, um, we have the energy that goes within that body is the soul. So, I mean, the body is the container. The soul inserts itself into the body on the day that we're born, and it comes here with, if we can all imagine, a little knapsack on its back from previous incarnations where it lived and where it gathered knowledge and energy, vibration, resonance. It learned lessons in other lifetimes, so it comes here from beyond. So meta meaning beyond, so beyond this earth plane. So the earth plane is the physical plane in which human beings live, but we come, I mean, I don't know that there's enough information or enough knowledge out there that might indicate, and sometimes I think people may be a little afraid of the possibility that they existed before in another container. Okay. They looked different. They had different people that they were connecting with, but quite honestly, those people that they were connecting with in other lifetimes, they may now be meeting again in this lifetime. And that explains this concept of soulmatedness and why people, have the connections that they do with other people because they've traveled together before. So to answer your question more accurately, meta meaning beyond, physical meaning here, psychotherapy, as we have come to understand it, and the way it's defined in this day and age, is more a study of the mind and behavior. And we leave out the energy that's within the human being. So, I mean, if I were to transition tomorrow, my container would still be here. And then my children or whomever would make a choice as to where it's going to go. But the reality is my energy, my soul, the part of me that downloaded however many years ago, went into this body, and that is what leaves. So most psychotherapies do not explore the agenda of the soul. They explore, what happened to you when you were 6, and what kind of relationship did you have with mom? What kind of, did you have a mother and a father? Was it a 2-parent home? What areas of relationship would you like to discuss today? So it's more about this time that you're here now and the people that joined you from the beginning of your life to now. But meta takes in the entire, the place that you came from before you met these parents or these siblings or, you know, the friends or relationships that you have here now. It takes in the many other lifetimes that you maybe, you know, explored those areas with possibly these people or with other people. So I think that you have to, on some level, what do I want to say, kind of embrace the possibility that there's more to us than just 2024 or just whatever year we were born, and the continuum of time from the time we were born until now. I look at the fact that there were lifetimes before, and that we come in with a lot of different knowledge and energies, and we have to explore that as well as looking at our current you know, relationships with family members. That's not the psychology of the soul, really, necessarily, the family members. We may have chosen those people to kind of do some part of our curriculum with, but that's not who we really are. I mean, that's why a lot of times parents will say, gee, I don't have anything in common with my children. Or my children will say, I don't really have anything in common with my parents. So where did this lack of commonality come from? I mean, my sense is that it came from before. So,
Right. But
however,
still here to learn something from that family group, so to speak.
that's right.
And it sounds like what I'm hearing you say is that, you know, clinical psychotherapy is more about the ego or the mind that you have in this lifetime.
That's right.
Whereas metaphysical therapy is more about, okay, we're gonna look at this lifetime, but we're gonna also look at maybe past lifetimes, or, you know, just that other ancient connections that
How
you
those lifetimes influenced you, what you brought
exactly.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And what you brought, you know, how you brought that into this lifetime and how it's affecting you now and all of
that,
that.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, see, like this literally we have to take a break already. And I'm like, oh my God, we didn't even get, we didn't even get into describing what the 4 different areas were, but we are going to get to that.
Okay.
You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will explore more with Anne Costerella, licensed psychotherapist and metaphysician. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. And before we continue, I want to make sure everyone knows how to contact me. You can find me at www.drdianehayden.com or either of my 2 publications, www.naturalnutmeg.com or www.essentialnaples.com. And you can learn more about Anne Costerella at www.maryannecosterella.com. That's spelled MaryanCosterella.com. So welcome back, Anne. We were really having a great discussion about, you know, the differences between clinical psychotherapy and metaphysical therapy. And I think that was really great where we went, because it really gave people, I think, a foundation to now know where we're going next in terms of what you do and how you're different from, you know, like a traditional type of therapist. So um, we mentioned earlier that you work with 4 different ancient wisdoms, we'll call them astrology, numerology, cardology, and personology. So I think most people are probably familiar with astrology and numerology, but I want you to give your definition of, you know, those platforms, and then we'll talk maybe a little bit more in depth about cardology and personology. So wherever you want to start.
Okay. So astrology is essentially where the sun was when you were born. So was it under the sign of Aquarius, Capricorn, and how does that particular placement depending on what your sun sign is, how does that influence your nature? Are you an earth sign? Capricorn, Virgo, um, um, are you an air sign? Aquarius, Gemini, Libra? Are you a water sign? So those different elements have much to do with how you lead. In terms of, are you more a feeling person? You might, if you are more feeling oriented, then you probably are a water sign. If you're more rationality entered, centered, you were probably an air sign. So communication would be very important to you, and just voicing your voice, so to speak. So air signs are very focused on, as I said, rationality and voice and communication. Earth signs tend to be grounded, and so that would be Capricorn, Virgo, and Taurus, which we're now in. So those earth signs are grounded signs, and they can be more fixed and sometimes more stubborn, focused more on stability. I would say possibly sometimes material stability, but certainly having more of a fixed nature than a water sign or an air sign, who are more mutable. And then a fire sign, so that would be Aries, Leo, or Sagittarius. Those signs are more impulsive. They might be more creative. They kind of like to strike the match. They like to get things going. They have a fiery nature. So it depends, of course, also on what day of Sagittarius you're born, what day of Aquarius. So it gets into a lot of really specific areas. But in general, generally speaking, those are the four compartments of astrology. And depending on when you're born and what week you're born and what day you're born, all those differentials have a lot to do with how you communicate your nature. So,
Love it.
yeah.
Love it. Okay. So then numerology.
Numerology is, well, we probably all remember the name Pythagoras and the Pythagorean theorem. So he is the father of numbers. And he basically said that every number 1 through 9, because there really are only 9 numbers, 1 marking the beginning of the cycle, 9 marking the end, that the posture of every single number defines the experience that's going on. So the 1 is, if you look at the number 1, it's phallic in the sense that it's about the I. So it basically indicates a sense of self. Like, I want to do this. I mean, and that would also be compatible with the sign of Aries, because that's the first sign of the zodiac. So you have to, with metaphysics, you have to start to kind of pull in different threads, almost like you're making a quilt. So Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. Number 1 is also a number that would define an Aries energy, because Aries are very focused oftentimes on self. They are leaders, they are initiators, they are warriors, so that sort of thing. So numbers define the experience. The number 2 indicates partnership. So you and me having a dyad here, having a conversation. Number 2 bows to the 1. So every single number has a different way of expressing itself. And you have to almost understand how to decode the number and then decode the experience. So,
And let me ask you a quick question. So as we're going through this, people are probably like thinking, oh, how do I figure out what number I am?
right.
So for example, like my birthday, February 8th, and it's you could look at the number 8, the day that I was born on,
Yes,
but you could also add up the numbers in my entire birthday, the
that's
month,
right.
day, and year, and you get a number which I think is more representative of that person's quote, what is their true number, or what number really represents their energy, or that kind of thing.
That's right.
So you would add all those numbers up and reduce them to a single number.
That's correct. So,
Okay.
and that's called the birth path number. So your birth path, by adding 2 plus 8 plus the year you're born, I don't know if.
Oh, yeah. I don't care. It's 1968.
1968. So if
Yep.
you add 2 plus 8, that's a 1, because 2 and 8 is 10. You take the 0 off of the 10, obviously, because it doesn't have a value. So 2 and 8 is 10 or 1. And then 1968 is 1 and 9, 1 and 67.
I could tell you, it works out to be 34.
Yeah.
So my number's a 7.
Yeah. Right, because the 6 from 1968 and the 1 from 2 and 8 is a 7. So you're very interested in the metaphysics because your birth path is a 7. So 7 days in the week, God rested on the Sabbath or the 7th, spirituality, all of those energies. What are you doing? You're spreading the word, the written word, of holistic medicine, which is spirituality, right? Because you're including not just the body and the mind in most of what you, publish. Most of it has got that final component of the 7, which is the spirit. So a lot of, what's in your magazine and a lot of your advertisers are all interested in adding spirit to their healing.
Right. Okay.
Which I find interesting.
And then one of my favorite topics, cardology, or the destiny cards.
Right. So cardology is the study of the 52 playing cards, which most people believe is, that we were meant to play with them, and that's why they're on this planet. But the reality is that they were never meant to be played with. They go back to the beginning of time. No civilization can claim them. There are 52 cards in the deck, 52 weeks in the year, 4 seasons, 4 suits, 12 royal cards, 12 months. And if you add the numerical value of every single card in the deck together, you get 365. So all those sayings that go back to the beginning of time again, like, oh, he's such a card, or let me put my cards on the table, or it's not about the cards you've been dealt, it's how you play the hand. All of those have a significant meaning, and the cards were also meant to be a predictive tool in terms of what energies we're on certain days, because each card has a different value. So if your heart, you came to the planet to learn about love and relationships. If you're a club, and this is all determined by the day you were born, so I would know the card for that day. If you're a club, you came here just to learn, period, to fill your head with knowledge. If you're a diamond, you came here to learn the value of things, not necessarily money, but the value, and to learn your own self-value. And finally, if you're a spade, you came here to learn what your soul's purpose is. And I would say that that really speaks a lot to my work with metaphysics, because people who usually come to see me are interested in knowing, why did I come to planet Earth? What was my purpose in coming here? What did I want to teach? What did I want to learn? What lessons am I here to get right this time? Perhaps I didn't get them right in a past life, and now this time I have an opportunity to redo those lessons, perhaps with someone that I knew from a past life. So maybe the person I'm in partnership with right now is somebody that I've met before, and my soul recognized her or him. And we want to do this dance again to see if we get it right. So the
Awesome.
yeah.
And then personology.
And then finally, personology is a more, what do I want to say, I guess, advanced astrological system. So the gentlemen that were downloaded from the other side and wrote this trilogy of books, and it's all under the heading of what they call personology. What they've done is, instead of saying there are 12 zodiac signs, Aries through Pisces, they said we're going to take every sign of the zodiac and we're going to divide it into 4 weeks. So we have Aries 1, Aries 2, Aries 3, and Aries 4. And each one of those weeks has a different type of energy connected with it. And we're going to tell you what the strengths of Aries 1s are versus the strengths of Aries 3s. I mean, it all gets very, what do I want to say?
And that is fascinating. And of course, we got to go to break again. So when we come back, we're going to finish. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be talking more with Anne Costerella when we come back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. I am talking today with Anne Costerella, and you can learn more about her at www.maryannecosterella.com. That's spelled MaryanneCosterella.com. So before we just went to the last break, you were explaining the differences between astrology, numerology, Cardology, or the destiny card system, and then we were finishing up with personology. So you started to tell us how each zodiac sign is actually divided into 4 weeks. So depending on, like, let's say you're an Aquarius, and you could be born between January, I don't know exactly what it is, 19th or 20th to February. So within that 4 week period,
right.
It breaks it down. So like I'm February 8th. So I think it's actually maybe like Aquarius 3, it might be. I forget exactly which one it is.
Probably
But
Aquarius 2.
two,
Yeah.
okay, 2 or 3.
Yep.
So
Right.
then that week gives me even more information
That's right.
about who I am, why I came here, what my purpose is.
That's exactly right. And it gives you specific strengths and weaknesses. So your strengths and weaknesses may not be the same strengths and weaknesses of someone who was born the week before you. Okay. And
Right.
you're also given a name that week that you're born is given a name or a theme name, like the week of the I don't know, liberator, or the week of the pioneer, or the week of, so depending on what your soul's purpose for coming here was, these gentlemen very comprehensively assign certain words and certain themes to that week, so that it really makes it very specific and highly individualistic and so incredibly accurate.
I love it. Yeah. In fact, I think there was something in my reading that said from the theater to the pioneer. In other words, like a past life was
Yeah,
more about me being up on a stage and speaking. And interestingly enough, like I have a lot of those talents, and I was never really formally trained to be a speaker, but it kind of came innately to me, which
right,
totally made sense when I read that. But this lifetime is about being a pioneer, which it's what I'm doing. I mean, basically starting a holistic lifestyle magazine almost 20 years ago, where people were kind of like, it was, if I feel funny saying like a lot of people didn't know like what it was, but it's true. Like a lot of people didn't know a lot about all these different holistic modalities.
yeah,
Whereas for me, again, it was like, what do you mean you don't know what, energy medicine is, or
right,
even some
exactly,
people who didn't really understand acupuncture or whatever it might be. To me, I was like, oh my God, all those things seem second nature. So I'm going to start this magazine. Everybody should know what it's about. But
right,
people really didn't. And some still don't, like, are still kind of just like dipping their toe in a lot of these different, you know,
exactly.
modalities. So
And that,
I love that.
yeah, because it's all, I mean, but and that's why you were born an Aquarius, because you had done that work in other lifetimes. So you came in heavily loaded with the information, or, I mean, it was already, like you say, innate. So, I mean, that you wouldn't have been born to be any other sign, because Aquarius is the age of the future. So,
Right.
I mean, this is where we're going slowly, very slowly, especially in the Northeast. But, we're getting there. I mean, we're certainly further. I don't have to keep 2 business cards anymore. So,
Right. Exactly. So when someone comes to see you, like you said, I would imagine most people are coming to you because they're at a point in their life where they're looking for something more. Like, why am I here? What is my purpose? That kind of thing. How do you decide? You have all these different modalities that you could use to
Right.
really, consult with somebody, or if you're doing, combining it with the therapy that you do.
Mhm.
How do you decide, what to do? Do you just kind of bring all of it into sort of one big overall picture?
I mean, it depends. A lot of times, people will come to me specifically because they've heard about me through Cardology. Okay, even though my website doesn't necessarily, focus more on Cardology than it does on the others, because quite honestly, I mean, that is one of the sciences, but it's not where I get all my information from, especially my information that has to do with purpose and existential meaning. Why am I here, and how did I come in, and where am I going? So I guess to answer your question about how do I decide, um, I see first of all what the client wants to focus on. What are their questions? What are their reasons for coming to me? Where do they want to go from here? They may have gotten to a point in their life where it's like, okay, I'm not just so interested anymore in necessarily career or possessions or buying a new house. I really want to know, I want to take a deeper dive into why I came to this planet, and what I'm supposed to leave here, what energy is supposed to be, left after I've transitioned. It's kind of that's just the way I think about it. And I think that so I have to sit with the client. We could start out with a card reading, but then as I'm explaining their year to them, I could also, based on their questions and based on the conversations we have, I can usually intuitively feel whether or not somebody wants to take this further. And a lot of people do. They want to know more. They they understand that it's just, for right now, I might be doing a yearly reading, but maybe they want a bigger picture than that. And I kind of feel that out. And then we set up another time for them to come back, and I may do a personology reading. Or I never would say that I would do an astrology chart, because as much as I know about astrology, I don't do charts. So I would send someone out to do a chart for astrology. But the personology piece, the cardology piece, and the numerology piece, I certainly could give them. Let me say this, I do weave a lot of the other information into, so if I'm doing cardology, I will weave numbers into the cardology reading. So it won't be a separate session for numerology. It'll be, oh, you're the 4 of spades. So 4 means X, Y, and Z, or, whatever that is. So I'll talk about the suit. I'll talk about the number. I'll talk about how that number affects your energy, how, because you're a 4, you're extremely organized and very methodical, you're a hard worker, you like to maybe be more almost behind the scenes, so to speak, but you carry the weight of the entire system or operation because you're very diligent about doing the work. So a spade, call a spade, is usually a very hard worker. They dig deep for the answers. And so, I would weave the numerology and the cardology together. But if we wanted to look at a bigger picture and see what energies you came to this planet with, and what the trajectory of your time here is supposed to be about, what are you supposed to learn? It's like a treatment plan. So I do treatment plans at work, but that's only for like somebody for a month's time, and maybe I want them to get sober, or I want them to mood stabilize or whatever. But now this is a treatment plan for the trajectory of your life. What energies did you come in with? Maybe you came in with Sagittarius, Capricorn energies, but your soul wants you to leave this plane, when you leave, having graduated into maybe I don't know, a Pisces, Virgo. So I'm just giving names to it, but there's a lot of information that goes under each of those categories. So I'll just say this very quickly. My youngest daughter came in and she was a healer in the beginning. She was like, you know, because I believe she was a healer in a past life. So she came in as a very, very young nurse doing oncology work, and probably because she had done that in another lifetime and was very comfortable with people dying and transitioning and all of that. But now she's completely out of that, and she's more in the business end of the businesses, pharmaceutical businesses. So she is a business head. So when I look at the trajectory, I see that the strengths that she had when she was bedside with a dying patient were strengths that she was a Virgo when she first came onto this plane, which meant she was a healer and she wanted to clean up the mess of somebody's physical ills. But now she's not really, I don't know, she's not going in that direction. She's going in a completely different direction. And so where did she get these talents and this business sense from? She didn't go to school for it. So if we don't go to school for it, if we don't learn it in the kitchen of our homes or from our parents, then where do we get, like you said, where do we get this knowledge? Where did you come in and all of a sudden decide to, you know, start a holistic healthcare magazine? I mean, where did that come from? I mean, it probably came somewhat from your Aquarian nature because you're humanitarian by nature. But it's a lot more that goes into it than that. So anyway.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. It just, well, as you're speaking, I'm thinking to myself, for people who, you know, either went to college for a particular degree or whatever and ended up not doing it, or
Right.
even if you did do it and then say, you know, 10, 15, 20 years from now, like a lot of people nowadays, especially after the last 4 years that we've been through, have decided, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. It's not,
Right.
I don't really feel like it's my purpose. It's occurring to me like, well, maybe we're really supposed to have like all these different kind of experiences. Maybe we're not really meant to. I'm not, and I'm generalizing because maybe some people are, but maybe most people aren't meant to have to stick to one thing. It's because you came in with these talents and so you gravitated towards something that you kind of already knew, and that's why you were doing whatever it was you were doing with your college degree or right out of college. But now, as you're transitioning throughout your life and you're getting into your 40s or 50s or 60s or beyond, now people are
Right.
working much longer, you're moving into other areas because you know, are supposed to learn something else in this lifetime.
That's right. And perhaps all those other steps that you spoke about, or those other jobs or positions, were teaching you something else, whether it was discipline or, you know, I mean, the other issue is that, you know, we come in and there's a program. We're programmed by the school system, by our parents. We're in this traumatized type of space, if you will, where people are telling us what we need to do, what's the next right step, so to speak. But, you know, I
Exactly.
mean,
Yep.
hopefully now we're starting to come out of that a little bit more, and people are thinking out of the box more and starting to realize that, you know, it doesn't have to be this way. And whether that means we get to our soul purpose sooner or not, I'm on that I'm not aware of, but
Right.
I certainly think that you know, a lot of time is spent working the program, so to speak, whatever the program is for others. And now,
Right.
you know,
Right.
so
And we
that,
got to take a short break. You're
okay.
listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. We will be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. You can learn more about me at www.drdianehayden.com. And I'm talking today with Anne Costerella. You can learn more about her at www.maryannecosterella.com. That's spelled MaryanneCosterella.com. So before we just took this last break, we were talking about when someone comes to see you, what are the reasons why people would be interested in the work that you do? Primarily, it's people who are looking for their sole purpose or feeling like there's more, they want more out of life. Why did I come here? What is this all about? But I would imagine there are also a lot of people that come to you about relationship stuff, like, why did I choose this person? Or maybe someone who's single and hasn't found the right person yet, and they're, looking for a soulmate, or how do they find their soulmate? And also, I know when I've done the work with you many times, because
Mhm.
we've worked together a lot,
Yeah.
it's also about like the friends that you choose and the people that you work with. And it's so funny. I'll never forget this one year that I did the Cardology report with you. I literally, I was happened to be that I was single at this point in time in my life, and I remember that I every single guy that I dated that year, his card was in my report at the exact same time that I was dating this person. Like, if it was in, and I'm going to rattle off stuff that people aren't going to understand unless they come to see you, and that's why they'll have to. But
Right.
let's say I was in my Mercury period or my Jupiter period or whatever, and I have the cards that represent that period, which can mean things that are going to happen to you or you're going to do, but it can also mean people that come into your life.
Yeah.
Sure enough, whoever I was dating at that time was that card. And I remember looking at that like, this is ridiculous. Like, how is this possible?
Right.
It's pretty amazing. It is pretty amazing. I
It
mean,
is.
literally, like the cards have I'll use the word predicted, even though I don't, that's not really the right word, but or confirmed, I'll say, when I got divorced, I had a divorce card. When I
Right.
have changed careers, I had cards like that. When I've traveled or moved like to different locations, I mean, it's pretty amazing.
It is.
So when somebody comes to you for relationship questions, like, how do you work with them in terms of helping them to understand who they're compatible with, or who they maybe should be looking for, or why, maybe even why they've chosen to be in relationships with people?
Right. I think the second question is easier than the first because here's my theory on all of this. I mean, I don't really think in most cases if the relationship intends to be a relationship of length or of depth or of some significance in the person's life, that choice has been made previously. So that person just drops into your life, whether it be in Stop and Shop or at a dance or at a bar or wherever you, or through someone who fixes you up or whatever. Just like children that are born to you and the parents that you were born to. So all relationships, I feel, are purposeful for the lessons that you need to learn on this planet. So even though we want to believe that we're doing the choosing, like parents want to believe they chose the date the baby was going to be born, or the doctor chose it, or whatever. No, I mean, metaphysics teaches that the soul of the child, or the soul of the boyfriend, or the soul of the marriage partner, it's already on some level, and people probably are not comfortable with this word because it interferes with our egos. Um, it's predestined, that there's a predestination to it. That's why when you say, how is it possible that the guy that I was dating was in the cards that I was getting in my yearly report? Because that had already been determined on some other plane. Okay.
It's
So,
interesting that you say that people may not be comfortable with that, because for me, and I wonder if any other listeners this is gonna resonate with them. For me, I actually like the fact or the belief that it's predetermined.
right.
Because to me, that means there is a bigger force at hand, much bigger than me,
Okay.
and it's looking out for me. And
Right.
these things are already, I've already agreed to these things before I incarnated. The other way feels to me like it's a lot of work to find my soulmate. Like, it's like a full time job. I've got to go out there and figure it out. Like, I've got to, like, get to work, get on, Tinder or whatever.
Exactly.
whatever dating site or whatever it is,
And make
to
it
try to
happen.
find this person. Whereas the other way, predetermined, look, hey, this is how you manifest. You
That's,
just sit back with your intention and that person will drop into your life.
that's right. And because in those other situations that you just described, they won't work because they were never intended. This is not someone, and you are not someone, and this other person is not someone that the two of you are going to learn from. So if there is no predestined karma between the two of you so that you can elevate your resonance while you're on this planet, you can elevate your consciousness because the two of you either have been in relationship before and you've got a bookmark in the place where that relationship starts to get re-engaged again. So like, oh, you and I met and we left that relationship incomplete three lifetimes ago. Now my soul, definitely recognizes you because we have this thing called chemistry. I mean, the soul is going to give you chemistry so that you stop at that particular parking space and you engage with that person. I mean, if we don't have chemistry, let's face it, I mean, nobody would be in relationship on this planet. I mean,
Exactly.
most part. So that's what I believe the sprinkle dust, I mean, is given to us from the other side to say, hey, this is the person you're going to do some work with. But so I think that, I don't know, that makes it easy. That is what I believe. That's what resonates for me is that, even the children that are born to a relationship. I mean, I will sit with people and they'll bring me a long list. I'll tell them, bring me a list of close people in your life who you feel, you'd like to know if they're in your cards this year, if they're in your deal or whatever. And sure enough, I mean, children, parents, people, I mean, it's almost like a straight flush or whatever. It's like, oh, he's the 7 of spades, you're the 8 of spades. Yeah, there's not. So that all indicates to me that there was a, whatever, these were souls that travel together in past lifetimes and now have come back in to complete whatever chapter was left incomplete previously. So I don't know, I tell people I don't need the whole year. I don't need where they were born. All I really want to know is the card. So just bring me the month and the day. And sure enough, most of the time, all the cards fall into place because we're not in charge. We are powerless on some level. And most of us, I mean, we have enough work right in front of us with whomever we're in relationship with, our bosses, colleagues. I mean, those people have all been chosen, especially if they're triggering you, or especially if you're feeling very highly compatible with them, almost like it's weird, like it feels like we've known each other for such a long time. It's not weird because you have known each other, just not in the container that you recognize.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just have a couple minutes before we end, but one thing I want to make sure that I say, like if I could leave people with anything about what we've talked about and how you've helped me, is that in certain situations, whether it was related to a person or related to an event, these systems really helped me understand why things happen, why they happen, when they happen, or how they happen, or in relationship to who they happen with.
Right.
It really helped me to understand, like, okay, this is what my soul was trying to learn
Yeah.
from this. And that's why I had to experience this, whether it's like, loss of a person or loss of a job or, any of that, a divorce, whatever it might be. It really helped me understand
Right.
why I was going through that, and confirmation
Yeah.
about, how I had to go through that because it was something my soul wanted to learn in this lifetime.
Absolutely. Especially if you look at it retrospectively, I mean, and go
Yep.
back and say, oh, this is why, and this is why it happened on this day, or or whatever the case may be. So yes, I agree. complete.
Exactly. So this has been amazing. Literally, we could have, 5 more of these and still not cover all the information that you cover.
So much.
I want to make sure people know how to find you again at www.mariannecosterella.com.
Yeah.
And definitely reach out to you by your website and connect with you. And I'm sure people are fascinated by this and they're going to be reaching out to you to learn more for sure. So thank you.
You're
And I
welcome.
want to thank all my listeners for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show. Please join me the first and third Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. Next time, we'll be discussing more about the power of thoughts and beliefs and the impact they have on your life. Have a great week, and I'll see you back here next time. Thank you for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show, revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. Tune in every Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Center your thoughts on what you want and shut the door on every suggestion of fear, worry, or lack from your own consciousness or the consciousness around you. Once you master that, everything is possible. To learn more about me, Dr. Diane, and receive a free digital subscription of my magazine, visit naturalnutmeg.com.